Hi, everyone. And I apologize for being late. Craziness, Passover, cooking good old matzo ball soup for the Passover for the second night. For today was the first full day of Passover, and of course, being that I am the Jewish stripper, I'm going to read you a little thing I wrote about Passover a couple years ago. Actually, yeah, a couple years ago, April of 23. So I'm going to read you a little Passover thing and then my article and elaborate more on Passover, the holiday that a lot of people consider the Jewish Easter, but in truth, the Last Supper was a Passover Seder. A lot of people don't know that, but if you didn't, now you know. If you're new to me, welcome and welcome everyone. I am Alla Kaplan, not a current stripper, a former stripper, but I call myself the Jewish stripper. The raw and real, the Jewish stripper, raw and real with Alla Kaplan. I don't know if you can hear me. Um, okay, the mic is on. Now you can hear me. Oh, my little thing is technical difficulties. So anyway, I'll start over. Welcome back to the Jewish Stripper with Alla Kaplan. If you didn't hear the first 30 seconds or so, because I forgot to get my little microphone. So as me being the Jewish stripper, I'm doing an episode on Passover, of course. And I was talking about when you couldn't hear me, I didn't have my microphone, about a lot of people think that the Passover is the Jewish Easter, which in fact it is not the Jewish Easter. The Last Supper with Jesus was a Passover Seder. So a lot of people didn't know that. So anyway, if you're new to me or not new to me, welcome back or welcome. And as I was saying, I'm not a current stripper, I'm a former stripper, but I named the podcast The Jewish Stripper Raw and Real with Alla Kaplan because there was a million other Raw and Reels. So, in any case, a lot of the time I don't have a guest. What I'm going to do is read you a little article that I wrote a couple years ago about Passover on medium.com. And I'm going to talk about Passover and slavery and how we were delivered out of bondage. So here goes the reading. And once again, they tried to kill us. We survived. Let's eat. That's pretty much the gist of every Jewish holiday is they tried to kill us. We survived. Let's eat. Food is a big part of, I think, every culture and every holiday in every culture. Anyway, another year that we are still on this planet, another year that we have not been annihilated by all those who would like to see us wiped off the map. Well, I've got news for you. We ain't going nowhere. The Jews are here to stay. I've got another secret to tell you. We don't control the world. And screaming, we don't control the world. Exclamation point, many, many, many exclamation points. The children will be listening to our story, the miracles that God performed for his people, the chosen people. All of the firstborn of the nation of Israel were to be slaughtered, said the Pharaoh. We built pyramids and for free under slave labor. Sometimes I wonder what we were chosen for. We are currently only 0.2% of the entire population on Earth. The There is not one group in the entire history of the world that has been more targeted. Yes, I know we are considered white, and so we have quote unquote white privilege. Throw that idea out the window quickly because we all have roots in Africa. If you're not on the bandwagon that we are the true quote unquote Jews, I think you better jump off quick. There is no Jewish conspiracy. Jews were in the entertainment industry in Europe long before they invented Hollywood. Why did they invent Hollywood? Because we were not allowed to go to universities to be doctors, lawyers, professors, and so the entertainment industry was born, which immigrated to America with them. Many people forget that the Jews were the first to give African Americans roles in Hollywood or record deals in music. White privilege, you say, no one likes to admit all people originally come from Africa. Don't believe it, do the research. I do not consider myself quote unquote white. I do have to put white when I fill out forms because there's no race for Jewish. Well, you could always put other, but I feel I just, for the easier part, fill out white. In any case, I'll leave you with this. Many years ago, I worked with a black man at a mortgage company. We were both telemarketers working on commission, trying to get people to refinance their mortgages. And my black coworker was upset with the president of the company because his commission check was off. He said, quote unquote, the word NI, GG, whatever, he, and me. Bam, the word was out there in the office, floating around. I walked up to my coworker and I quietly said, all people have been enslaved at some point by their own people or other groups. Silence, you could hear a pin drop. He had no retort. So, no matter your background, today is a day of celebrating freedom for all people. So, the reason I wrote that, and it's always been interesting to me that a lot of people are have African roots. They don't know about it. It's been researched, it's been backed up by science that basically all of us started somewhere in Africa. No matter how white we appear now, there is backup scientific proof that genetically human beings started somewhere in Africa. And then, migrating to different places, they, I guess, assimilated to their environment. And that's why people started to get white, maybe. But the thing about slavery is, as I told my coworker, every group of people has been at some point on earth enslaved, whether they were, and a lot of times their own people, by their own people. So what I want to express today is that Passover is not just the Jewish Easter. Passover is, I'm not going to sit here and read you the whole story. I'm not going to, tell you about the parting of the Red Sea and the miracles with Moses and God, telling Moses to take his people out of Egypt and out of bondage. But that is what we celebrate on Passover. And yes, I'm the Jewish stripper, but today's podcast has absolutely nothing to do with stripping whatsoever, more on the Jewish part, on the Jewish focus. So a lot of people really have a short memory and forget that actually Jewish people were not, even when they had started Hollywood, but back in the time when there was the segregation in the South, Jewish people marched with Martin Luther King. Jewish people came and sat with everyone there. Jewish people went and got on the buses. Jewish people went in the marches. And the reason that the Jewish people showed up for the Black people, for the African Americans, is because whenever there's been an injustice, and not just during slavery, but during the segregation, Jewish people always came through for their friends. Their whenever they see an injustice, they show up. We show up. And I guess what I want to say is that right now, it's important, even if you're not Jewish, to show up for us. We are only 0.2% of the world, the world population. And yet, when there's a crisis, when Haiti had its earthquake, when there was the tsunami, when there's an injustice being done, and even the injustice for people being killed across the world, not just Jewish people, but people in Africa, people in China, people in Syria, people in wherever, Yemen, Morocco, all of the Arabian areas around Israel, in the Middle East. We show up for our friends. We show up when there's an injustice being done. We show up and we march with you. We show up and we raise our voices. And this is a critical time that we also aren't self-hating, and we're not self-hating Jews. And we show up for each other, and we show up for ourselves. And that is what we're doing. We're showing up for ourselves, not because it's something popular to do, but because it's the right thing to do. Whether you believe it or not, Jews have always been one of the first to be on the scene when something was not fair, when something was not right, when people were being segregated, a lot of people talk about slavery, that Jews were somehow part of slavery. I'll tell you this, who wasn't part of any slavery that's ever been on this earth, that's ever occurred, where people were enslaving each other? I'm certain that there were Jews who probably maybe were part of, I don't know for certain. There may have been some Jews who participated in something having to do with slavery. They were merchants, and they were merchants because they weren't allowed to be in other things. So they were traders, they were merchants. But for the most part, it's a little fact of history that people embellish that is not really true, that people would like to go and blame Jews for all the problems of the world. What happened in Egypt back, so many thousands of years ago, when we were slaves in Egypt, when we were building the pyramids, under slave labor. What happened was that the population was becoming uh, more than the Egyptians. That's why the Pharaoh had ordered for the firstborn of Israel's nation, for the nation of Israel to be slaughtered, was because the population was, despite slavery, thriving. And if you really want to know what happened, I would say, I'm not going to sit here, like I said, and read the story of Passover to you, but you can Google it and you can, educate yourself. And, the people who jump on the bandwagon talking about that we control everything. We control finances. We control the weather, for God's sake, supposedly. We don't control anything. I wish if I controlled anything in this world, it would be wars and famine. If I controlled anything, I think that I would by now be uh, much bigger in the podcasting industry than I am right now. Um, if we control the world, then explain to me, if we controlled the world, how the Holocaust even happened, if we controlled the world so much. And, I consider October 7th like another Holocaust. I considered our second Holocaust. Um, I said for years to friends and family that another Holocaust was going to happen. No one believed me. Everybody thought that I was psychotic or crazy or just schizophrenic. Who knows? And it came. It came. October 7th to me was a second Holocaust. And now more than ever is the time, especially during Passover, that, like I said, we show up for ourselves. The reason that Israel has to exist is because we have to control for ourselves, determine, not control, but determine our own fate, because every other people have their own nation. The British have their nation, the Irish have their nation, the Mexico has their own nation. Every Latino group has their own nation, and every single group on earth, like as I mentioned, has been at some point enslaved by either the conquerors or their own people who traded them in. And so to sit here and say that we control everything, well, if the Jews invented the banking system, it was probably because they weren't allowed to be um, in other forms of any type of businesses. They weren't allowed to go and be doctors. They weren't allowed to go and be lawyers. So they went and they invented industries, literally industries, and people wanted to do business with them. And then if things went awry, if something went awry for someone, then of course, let's blame the Jews. But blaming someone for your own problems is never going to be the solution. So, what is the solution to slavery, to bondage. I feel like currently, when they say in the Bible, no weapon against me shall prosper, what does that really mean? Well, to me, it means that every single group that has ever tried to annihilate us, when people are screaming from the river to the sea, when people are screaming that we're occupiers, we're settlers in our own land, we can't possibly be occupiers or settlers. And yes, this issue is important to me. And I do feel like currently our people are still in bondage and we're slaves to false accusations. We're slaves to blood libels. We're slaves to manipulation of media. We don't control the media. If we controlled the media, then how can everyone be saying that everything is our fault, that we are, committing genocide, that we're the ones that are taking advantage of situations. If we are somehow the controllers of everything and we control the entire world, then how can so many people be against us? Wouldn't we find a way to subdue them quickly and they wouldn't be heard from again? So the final point that I'm going to make, it's a happy holiday. In general, Passover is the story of going back to the land of Israel for the people going back to where they came from and reclaiming their identity. And what the Jewish people have always been able to do is to not control the world, but control their own identity. That is why we have survived every occupation on us, why we have survived. The reason that the Jewish people have in general been able to come through every situation where there was everything against them, all the odds were always stacked against us, and yet we continue to survive. And it's because of traditions like Passover, it's because of the holidays, it's because we refuse to die, it's because we are not the blood libel that people put on us. It's because we refuse to, convert. We refuse to change what we have done for thousands of years, which is not the fact that it's not the fact of religion. It's not the fact of ideology. It's the fact that we identify ourselves. We want to determine our own fate, just like any people on earth. And we refuse to be slaves to a situation. We refuse to go down for something that people accuse us of that we're not doing. We're not trying to control the world. All we want to do is live in peace and prosper, and we want our neighbors to prosper, and we want our friends to prosper, and we want to bring light to the world, not to keep people in the dark. So I think today I'm going to end it with this. There's there's always going to be someone who's going to want to enslave another group of people. And slavery doesn't necessarily mean physically. Slavery is a mentality. Slavery is an ideology. The ideology that someone has to bend to the rule and only the rule of one group of people, and that there's no other way to live, that in some kind of way everyone has to pay homage and only live the way someone tells them to live. That's why we have survived. That's why we have not survived, but thrived, because we refuse to have anyone tell us what we should worship, who we should be, how we should look, how we should dress, how we should eat, where we should live, that we're only allowed to live in one place, that we're only allowed to be a certain way. There are so many in the Jewish people, there are so many, just like anyone else, colors, skin color, whether it's orientation, whatever it is, there we are as diverse, and we like diversity, and we embrace diversity. And I think that that's, to me, the story of Passover, and the story of the survival of the Jewish people, is that we embrace diversity, and we want to bring light to the world, and we want to live in peace with our neighbors. And like any other group of people, we don't want to proselytize to anyone our religion. We're not trying to convert anyone. If people want to come to us, to our religion, that's great. That's wonderful. But we're not trying to control the world. We're not trying to force anyone into a caliphate. We're not trying to make the world into everything that's Jewish. We're just proud of who we are, and we're not going to back down and say we're going to bend to you. And so I'll leave you with the fact that Passover starts as a in slavery, but ends in freedom, and everyone wants freedom. In the end, that's what all people want, is just to be free, to love as they want to love, to be as who they want to be, without, as long as you're not harming anyone, as long as you remember that karma is real, and karma goes around, whether it's quickly or slowly, karma goes around, and it's real. And so I just want to leave you with the fact that we all want to be free. And so on Passover, everyone should celebrate the fact that we came out of slavery into something wonderful. And I'm going to leave you with that. And thank you, by the way, for all my YouTube subscribers. I think we're like up to 2,500, and I appreciate every single one of you. I thank you so much for tuning in, for listening. This will be eventually, I will update all my podcasts to Apple and to Amazon and Spotify. And just thank you very much for being a part of my life, and listening and tuning in and subscribing. And if you've never subscribed, Please go to Alla Kaplan 3270 on YouTube. And if you are Jewish, I wish you a very happy Passover. And if you're Christian and Catholic and whatever you celebrate, I wish you a happy Easter coming up as well. Thank you so much, and good night.